My journal will have two signatures, which will consist of the mix of printed pages from the paper collection that we are working with today. I'm using the letter size printing papers, and I print borderless on both sides. If your printer doesn't support the option of borderless printing, the only thing that you will have to do after you print your pages is to cut off the white borders. So the collection includes, I think it's usual, 24 page designs. So if you print them on both sides, you will have 12 double-sided pages, and I divide them in two parts. So here I have 6, and in the signature that I have already built, I also have 6 double-sided pages, which are mixed with tea-stained papers of the same size, the letter size, which is 8.5 inches by 11. And I wanted to make the tea-stained pages look less boring, so to say. So I decided to use the stamps from my stash. There are lots of botanical themed stamps from Tim Holtz, and I didn't build the second signature yet because I just wanted to show you some of the pages with stamping so that you could understand better how maybe you could use your stamps. I stamped quite randomly. To be frank, I used some text stamps and also some stamps of the leaves. As you can see here, some script or handwriting stamps, and I tried to stamp each sheet just in different places on the page. We will start to work on the journal signatures and pages first. The plan is to have 2 signatures as we know them, and in 2 other places, instead of the signatures, I want to add sort of pocket pages with different pockets, as you can see here. And I also plan to add a large tag or a journaling card inside that pocket page. And once it's assembled and attached to the spine of the journal, I think we can work on some more fun decorative elements that we could put inside the pockets. So that's one of the pockets that I have started to work on. We will work on the second one, of course, together, and it will be the same design as the one that I have here. I think it will be easier to do it that way. Then here I have one of the signatures, one of the 2 signatures that my journal will have, and I have already built it. And these pages I have left for now because I want to explain what exactly I did. Right now I'm going to take one printed page and put one tea-stained page, and again a printed one, a tea-stained one, and so on and so forth until I have my signature complete. So that's one, and that's the second one. Now they look quite similar in thickness. So that will be the first signature. Then we will have the pocket page with different tags and elements on it. And that's the second signature. And after this signature, we will once again have the pocket page. So the spine of my journal will be 1 7/8 of an inch thick, and the piece that the signatures will be bound to will also have 1.5 inch flaps on each side. You can see that I have poked the holes already. I will give you all the measurements. Let's begin with the overall measurement for this cardstock piece. It is 4 7/8 by 8.5, and on the short side of this paper piece you will score at 1.5 inches, both from the left and from the right side. Then this is what we have. In order to poke the holes, and you can see that each one of the holes is 3/8 of an inch away from the previous one, and from the consecutive one, but also 3/8 of an inch away from the flaps on both sides. So I have here 3 rows of holes, and each one of the rows is at 1.5 inch away from the either top or bottom edge of this paper piece. And then, since the whole piece is 8.5 inches tall, the center is at 4 1/4. So these are the measurements: 1.5, 4 1/4, and 7 inches. So you will draw the horizontal lines, and then you will just start measuring from one of the score lines on the so-called spine. That means that you will mark the placement for the holes at 3/8 of an inch, 3/4 of an inch, 1 1/8, and 1.5. And you will do that at the level of 1.5 inches, then at 4 1/4, and at 7 inches. You will poke the holes, and then you will need a piece of fabric. I'm using some ivory cotton. This is 100% cotton, and I'm going to glue it down on, this is the piece which is quite long. It needs to be long enough so that you can wrap the flaps around the paper piece like so in the back, and then you will need another piece of fabric to cover the remaining area like so. I will glue the long piece to the side where the flaps fold up, and the shorter piece will be after that, glued in the back. I think I will speed up this process and get back to you once I'm done. Before I attach the piece in the back, I want to repoke the holes on this side of the fabric and paper, and I can kind of see through the fabric because it's a light color and I can see the lines that I have sketched. But if you don't see the lines, you can poke the holes from the back, from the side where you initially sketched all the lines. Now I can keep on gluing this piece. Once the piece is dry, you will have to re-poke the holes again just to make sure that they're visible on both sides now. And you might need to rescore the flaps once again, 1.5 inch from each of the edges. And I have already done that. I want to fold them right now, so I'm using a ruler just to make sure that it doesn't slide, and it's still 1.5 inch away from each edge. That's what we have right now. You can also at this stage use your distress ink and distress the top and the bottom edges of your future inner spine of the journal. Here I did that, and I also added some ink in the folds. We are ready to poke holes in our signatures. Make sure you clip the pages so that they're held nicely together. And for poking the holes themselves, you will need a template. I'm using a template, and the 3 holes which I have here, well, I have different placements, but the holes will of course have to be in the template in the same places where they were on the inner spine that you're going to use for binding your signatures onto. That means that it will be at 1.5, 4 1/4, and 7 inches, and the overall length of your template will be 8.5 inches, the same as the length of the inner spine. Here is the first signature. I will bind it right onto the spine right now, and then I will bind the second signature as well, and the first one will be bound to the first set of the holes, and my second signature will be bound to the third set of the holes. The second and the fourth we will leave for now because we are going to attach our pocket pages in there. There is one more thing that I wanted to mention. I want to add some lace, and that's very delicate lace, quite thin. I want to add a piece of that to the spine, like so. And I'm going to glue it down first, and then I will stitch at the top and at the bottom to make sure that the lace stays there in place. The piece of lace that I'm using will be a bit longer than 1 7/8 of an inch. That's what we have so far, and now I'm ready to attach 2 of my signatures. Okay, both of them are now attached like so, and we have here a place for adding our pocket page, and also the place in the very end. Let's talk about the pocket pages, right? One is here. I have almost finished creating it. So we will start with a sheet of 8.5 by 11 craft cardstock. Here we go, and we will score it in the center on the long side. It will be at 5.5. We can now fold it. Just make sure that you fold it straight, because some papers are not like mine. See, it's not 100% straight on the edges, but it is fine now. Okay, now you can see that I have a notch here for the tag to go in. So for creating this, we're going to use the envelope punch board, and the cardstock that I'm using is quite thick. That's why I will unfold the paper and punch each one of the corners separately. I will put the corner at the mark of 2 inches and punch, and then flip the paper like so. Put the corner again at 2 inches and punch, and do the same on the opposite side. Now we need to get rid of this tab here. We will need 2 hinges to attach at the top and at the bottom of this paper piece. Each one of the hinges will be 1 inch wide by 5.5 inches long. You will score each piece down the center and fold, and I will trim the corners like so. And now I will use the wet glue for attaching it to only one side of the page. The glue is here, and I'm attaching the hinge right along the edge of the page. Make sure that you stay close to the edge itself. Okay, just like so. Do the same at the bottom of the page. Our hinges are ready, and we will just need to attach the double-sided tape to the second half of each one of the hinges. I'm trying to stay close to the outer edge of the hinge. That's what we have so far. Next, we will need to embellish our page on both sides with some pattern papers. Here I have some. Let's have a look. I think I will go with a more muted color tones for this specific purpose, because we are going to add more colorful tags to the pockets afterwards. I think I will use 2 of these designs right here, and I will need 2 pieces of paper, one from here and one from there. They will both measure 8 1/4 by 5 3/8. Here we go, 8 1/4 by 5 3/8, 2 pieces. One will be in the front of this page and the second in the back. I need to punch out the notches again on each one of those papers. So remember that we had punched the notches here on the craft cardstock at the mark of 2 inches. So in the case of the pattern paper, we will do that at 1 7/8. And when you punch, keep your base page close by so that you can see how exactly you need to turn the paper and punch in the correct spot. So one will be here, and then I will flip the paper like so and punch again. Okay, now I will, the same way as I did before, cut off the tab. This page will go here, and now I will flip the page and see again where I need to punch on this side. Ink the edges if that's what you did before. Now let's have a look at the first page that I have right here. So we have the acetate pocket, which is attached to the pattern paper here. For creating the pocket, you will need a piece of acetate, and the acetate will measure 4 inches by 8 1/4. It will be the same height as your pattern paper. And as you can see, I have used some gold foiled washi tape and wrapped it around the long edge of the acetate, and then I'm going to add some zigzag stitching in here. That just ensures that the washi tape stays in place. Here I have stitched on top. I'm not gluing it down yet because I first of all need to create the additional paper pockets, and they are right here on top of the acetate. For creating each one of the pockets, I think I'm going to use the second half of the pages that I have previously cut for matting my pocket page all together. On this page, I will use this pattern, and on that one, later on, I will use the green or teal. And for each one of these pockets, we're going to need a paper piece that will measure 4 1/4 by 2 3/4. Let me cut that and show you the measurement again. Here we go. Here's the measurement, and they will be attached, each one of them, on top of the acetate like so. And we will also have notches in each one of these pockets. The notch will have to be punched, and again, just keep your page close by so that you know exactly where to punch. So each one of the notches will be at 1.5 inch. That I punched the first one. And here is the second. We will also cut off that tab. We will not need it. Let's ink the edges. Okay, they are inked now. I am not going to use glue for attaching the papers to the acetate. I'm going to stitch them down. I think it's way better with acetate. I mean the stitching. So as you can see here, my pockets are attached to the acetate pocket right here with this stitch line. That's for the top pocket, and this line attaches the pocket to the acetate here at the bottom. The way we're going to do it is very easy. I will match the corner of the paper with the corner of the acetate. Make sure they're straight there on the edges as well. And I will clip them together with some paper clips, like so. And now I will take this to my sewing machine and start the stitching right. Let me take something for the background. So I will start the stitching right here and go down like so. And that's how it looks. You will need now to pull the threads to the back and tie double knots there. Now I will cut off, after tying the double knots, I will cut off the excess of the thread on this side of the paper, but I will still keep them long on the side which is like visible on the acetate there. And I will now do the same thing. I will stitch it the same way here on the pocket that will be at the bottom. Make sure that you match the edges of the acetate and the paper nicely. and I will stitch it right here and get back. Now it has been stitched down, and I want to use a tiny piece of clear tape. Let's make sure that it's not wider than this paper section right here, and I will just secure the threads on to the acetate like so, and now I will trim the excess. Make sure that you burnish the tape down to the acetate. And that's that part of the page with the pockets is ready now, and we can go ahead and stitch it down to the pattern paper piece. We're going to do it the same way. We're going to clip it down while we stitch. So I will begin stitching from here, catching the corner of the acetate, and I will stitch like so, and up here, catching this corner of the acetate with the thread again. And here we go. You will pull the threads to the back and tie double knots. We are ready now to glue this whole element down to our craft cardstock base. And while you glue it down, make sure that you leave even border from all the four sides. That's this part of the page right here. Now let's work on the second side. We already have the base designer paper here. As you can see, we also have similar structure with the acetate pocket there, and two more pockets here and here. So for creating the pockets, we will need a piece of acetate. The acetate will measure 4 inches by 8 1/4, but I'm not going to glue the foiled washi tape just yet. First, I will need to attach the pockets onto the acetate and stitch them down. Actually, only one will have to be stitched down, and only once these papers for the pockets are attached, we're going to add the washi tape and zigzag stitch it along the edge. So now let's prepare the papers for the horizontal pockets right here. This will be the pattern of the paper that we will have at the very bottom. Now we can use the remaining paper piece with this pattern for the pockets. The pockets will measure 4 inches by 2.5. Here we go. And we will once again use our punch board. So on one of the long sides, and let's keep our page close by. So one of the long sides will have to be punched at 1.5 in the envelope punch board. And let's cut the tab off. Ink the edges. You remember that the length of the acetate and the length of the pattern paper is 8 1/4. That means that the center is at 4 1/8. So I will take my poking tool and I will just scratch a tiny line at 4 1/8 of an inch. I don't know if you will be able to see that line, but anyways, it's there. I just don't want to use a marker. I don't want that line to be visible. So right now I will take one of my patterned papers that I'm going to use for the pockets, and I will position the bottom corner of the paper piece right at the mark, and I will make sure that these both edges of the paper and the acetate meet, and I will clip them together. Now I'm going to take this to my sewing machine and stitch along the bottom edge of the future pocket. Okay, like so. Pull the threads to the back, tie the knots, and trim the excess. That's what we have for now. This piece has been stitched down to the acetate. Now we're going to have to attach the bottom pocket right along the bottom edge of the acetate. And for doing that, since I don't need to stitch it right now, I am going to apply just a bit of glue along one of the straight edges of this paper piece. And now let's make sure that we do our best aligning both of the pieces together. I'm using the edges of the acetate as my guides. Okay, so here we have glued the paper down to the acetate, and do a really thin line of glue in there. We just need to hold it in place. Let's have a look if we need to trim any excess of the paper. And I don't know what about you, but I do need to trim a bit. Okay, now we will need to apply the foiled washi tape in there. I know that my washi tape is about 3/4 inch wide, so that means that my tape needs to go about 3/8 of an inch in. I can see that here there will be a white border visible. Okay, so if it's not yet too late for you to peel it off and restick, and if it's already late to fix it that way, you will just use your scissors and cut a bit off of that tape at an angle, so that when you fold it over, there is no white showing in the front. That's what we need. Okay, so now I will trim the excess here and here. And now I'm ready to take it to my sewing machine and zigzag stitch. This is our piece for now. Let's make sure that it's not covered in fingerprints. And then I use my metal ruler and I hold it really close to the working surface, not at an angle like so, but really as flat as possible, and I just go with it over the threads, pressing them down, because with the acetate here the stitches might be very rough. They can feel very rough when you go over them with your finger. Okay, so now our page is right here, ready to be stitched down to the pattern paper first, of course. And once again, we will just align the edges of both the acetate and the paper together from here right along that edge, along this edge, and here, and finish right after the foil tape here. Or if you want, you can stitch all the way to the corner, or even go along that shaped edge as well. In that case, you might want to do the same on the previous paper piece as well. This is what we have. Don't forget to pull the threads to the back and tie the double knots. And we can now go ahead and glue this page down to the craft cardstock. Okay, so let's prepare the large journaling cards or tags or photo mats if you want for the pocket pages. For the craft base, you're going to need a piece of paper that measures 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and we're going to punch a notch at 1 5/8 of an inch in the envelope punch board. 1 5/8, and we're going now to get rid not of the tab that we have just created, but of the pieces right here. And next I'm going to take my corner rounder and just round each one of the 4 corners. For matting both of these mats, you're going to need pattern paper of your choice, and I think that's the patterns that I will go with. So they will measure, all 4 of them, they will measure 4 7/8 by 8 inches. You will not have to punch any notches in them, just maybe round the corners so that they will nicely match on top of your mats on which we rounded the corners as well. Don't forget to ink the edges if that's what you do, and just glue the pattern papers on both sides of your mats. And here are both of my mats. Each one of them will go inside the pocket page like so. You can also, if you really plan to journal a lot, you could use pattern paper on one side of the mat and then maybe tea-stained paper on the back of it. Or you can, if you already added the pattern papers, you could add the tea-stained mat on top. That's also an option. So right now we will treat each one of these pockets as signatures, and we will poke the holes in them. Oh, one thing that I forgot to do is reinforcing this fold of the pocket page with a piece of tape. That's something that I really want to do. And I can also see that here I have been stitching the papers right down to the craft cardstock. That's also fine, but you can do it the way I did it right here while I filmed the tutorial. So let's get back to the piece of tape here for the fold. Here I have a piece that I will have to trim, or no, well, maybe just a little. Okay, and let's burnish. And then we will use the same template that we used for the signatures when we poked the holes, and we will repoke those. I can just put the template inside the page and try to hold it nicely together and poke the holes. And then on this side as well, we need one. Then after poking the holes, you will attach this page down to the spine, tie the knots to secure the signature in place, and then you will just peel off the backing from the double-sided tape and seal your page closed. And you will do the same with the second page. Okay, so one page has been attached to the spine, and now I have attached the second one. I will remove the paper backing from the tape and glue down on one end, and now I can do the same at the bottom of the pocket page. Okay, just like so. And when it's sealed together, I can put my mat inside, and the signatures, at least the base of the signatures for our journal is now done. We will get to work on the cover next. For the cover, we will need 2 pieces of medium weight chipboard, and both of the pieces will measure 8 5/8 by 5 7/8. Then in one of the pieces, I am going to cut out an opening, and for creating the opening, you will first need to draw 3 guidelines right here. They will be 1 inch away from the outer edges of the chipboard, and then the width of our window will be 2.5 inches. Cut out your opening to get this. Then we will need a piece of cardstock for the spine. I'm using Craft. It will measure 8 5/8, like the length or the height of our chipboard pages, and it will be 4 inches wide. You will have 1 inch flaps on both sides of this cardstock piece, and then the width of the actual spine of the book that we're going to have will be 2 inches, which is 1/8 of an inch more or wider than our inner spine. And for making it easier for the spine to curve, you will just score this 2 inches gap at every 1/8 of an inch on your scoreboard. Now next, I'm going just to glue the covers to the flaps of the cardstock piece, like so. Okay, that's the start. Let's just make sure that our signatures fit inside nicely, and I think they do. Here we will have the acetate window, and I can already see that we will have to trim this flap just a little bit due to the size of the window, so we will take care of it later. I'm going to wrap the cover with cotton fabric, as I did with the spine before. So the piece of fabric that I'm going to use, it needs to be large enough so that you can fold it over at the long edges and the short ones. And for gluing it down, I'm going to use the same Tacky Glue or PDA glue, diluted with just a little amount of water so that it's more liquidy and easier to use. I have glued down these 3 edges of fabric to the inside of the cover. The paper on the spine can warp a little bit because it's still quite damp from the glue, but it will be okay, since first of all we will have the inner spine with the signatures to support it from the inside, and also once it gets dry it will look way better. Now I don't glue this edge of the fabric onto the chipboard just yet because I first want to take care of the opening that we have right here. So I will put something underneath this area just to protect my surface, and now I will make sure that I cut the opening in the fabric and leave about 1/2 inch borders right there, so that I'm actually able to wrap these flaps and cover the edges of my frame. So once I have the opening there, I can just diagonally cut like so using my scissors, and now I am able to finish gluing down the flaps on the inside of the cover using the wet glue, and only after that I will glue this edge on the side over the flap that will cover the opening, and then it will look like so. So let me do that and get back to you. I will also add just a bit of glue right along the edge of the chipboard so that the fabric really sticks to the chipboard in there. Now when this step is done, I usually like to ink the edges of my cover, and I do it both on the outside and on the inside. Don't forget the area around the opening. Now we will have to mat our cover with the pattern papers. For the back, I chose this plain pattern, and The paper measures 5 5/8 by 8 3/8. For the front, I chose this pattern. The overall measurement for the paper piece is the same, 5 5/8 by 8 3/8. Now for creating the opening, we will need to make some additional measurements. We will have to create 3 guidelines away from both of the long edges, and 1 line will be away from the edge at the top of the cardstock piece, and all 3 lines will be 7/8 of an inch away from the edges. And then this line right here will stand 2.5 inches away from the one at the top. Now we are ready to cut out the opening, and I will use my metal ruler and the retractable knife. We can use this piece for a little tag or something like that in the journal. Ink the edges of the frame next. You will also need a piece of acetate that will be glued down in the back of the pattern paper. The piece of acetate will measure 3 1/4 by 4 1/2. And first of all, I'm going to use my wet glue for adhering it down to the paper. I don't need to apply a lot because I just need to hold it in place. And after that, I will take it to my sewing machine and stitch all the way around and get back. I would recommend not to stitch on a high speed, and also to increase the length of the stitch from 2 1/2, which is the default, to about 3 millimeters. So now this piece is ready, and it will go right on top of our opening right there. And I will use my ruler again just to smooth down the stitches here in the back. Now I can go ahead and glue this piece down to the fabric. We will align this piece with the opening that we have, but we will also look at the edges of the paper piece and the chipboard cover to make sure that we have even borders all around. I like to stitch my covers, so the next step will not be necessary, but if you want, this is the time to add sewing to your covers. And since the whole cover is too big to fit into the sewing machine, I start stitching from this line, and then I rotate the cover and stitch again from here to here and finish right here in this corner. And I do the same for the back cover. I start stitching from this line here and then sew around the remaining 3 edges. For embellishing the inside of our front cover, you will need to prepare exactly the same piece of pattern paper in terms of dimensions, and you will need to add the acetate window to it. As you can see, I have also added stitching here to remind you the dimensions. That's the size of the paper that you're going to need. The 3 guidelines that you will create first will be 7/8 of an inch away from the left hand side, the right hand side of the paper, and from the top. And then from the top line you will measure 2 1/2 inches down, and that will give you the outline for cutting out the window. Now it's time to think what we want for the closure of our album, and I think I'm going to have the sort of a string closure, and the string will be connected to this picture hanging hook. I am not really sure how these ones are called, but I will include the link to the product on AliExpress in the description box down below. If you have another idea for the closure, by all means go ahead and do what you prefer. I have a piece of string which is folded in half, and it should be enough to go from this part of the album around it, and, well, of course, add to the thickness of the pages as well. And the tail should be enough to be wound up around a little circle. I have also prepared the circle. I cut it out from leather. You're welcome to use paper as well. I just thought that leather might be more durable. I also have here 3 strips of the same color and quality of the leather for adding them to the spine, to reinforce the spine that way. And the strips are 1/2 inch wide by 3 inches long. I also have one more hook that I want to attach right here, so that I later on might be able to add a tassel or a few charms to the spine of my journal. And I also have 2 tiny strips which are 1/2 inch wide by 1.5 inch long, and these I am going to use in the back of my journal cover, and they will just hold the string right here. I'm going to find the middle of the spine first. So my cover is 8 5/8 of an inch. I'm going to move it a little bit down so that the center is at 4 1/4. And now I'm going to draw a faint line just so I know where the center is. And then I'm going to use the glue and adhere the strip to the spine first. And after that, I will use a few brads to secure it even further. So I have attached 5 brads for now, and in here I am also going to attach that hook with the string for the closure. I'm going to add just a tiny bit of super glue to the back of the hook before attaching it to the leather strip. And it's done. In the back of the cover, make sure that the prongs of the brads stay parallel to the edge of the chipboard. Next, I'm going to attach the little strips for holding the thread in the back of the cover, and I'm just pulling by the thread and try to keep it straight. And now I'm going to see where exactly I want to place these string holders. I think about 3/4 of an inch away from the edge of the cover on this side would be good, and about here on the opposite side. I'm going to add just a bit of glue to the very ends of those leather strips, and I will not add any in the center, because the string is going to be there. I think I'll start gluing the first strip right here, and then I will glue down the second one. And next I will poke the holes in here and again attach the brads. Okay, here we go. The brads are now in place. Why I did that? Because if you will ever need to change the string, maybe it wears out, or you want to change the color, or I don't know what else can happen to it, you will be just able to pull it out and string the new one. I also think about adding maybe some beads to the ends of the string here, but I will do it later. I'm going to add this little leather circle and then attach it with a brad as well, and the string will tie around that circle. We are ready to think about the filling for our window first of all, and also I am going to have a pocket in the front of the cover. For creating the pocket, I am going to use the frame punch board by We Are Memory Keepers. And you don't have to use this punch board. I just really wanted to have rounded corners here for the opening, and this can be achieved either with a die of the correct size if you need one, or with this frame punch board. So I'm going to use it, and you're welcome to do it another way if you have an idea for it. Okay, I'll start with a piece of craft cardstock, and this piece is 4.5 by 3. In the punch board, I am going to position 2 of these stoppers at 1/2 inch on both sides and punch. That's what we will have as a result. Next, I need to get rid of the opening inside, and you can use the same frame punch board for that, but for me it's easier just to use a ruler and a craft knife. Okay, here we go. Rounded corners on the inside, perfect. Now I will ink the edges of the frame both on the inside and on the outside. As a matter of fact, I have already inked before. I find it easier to do it before cutting out the opening. Now for making it into the window pocket, I will need 3 hinges, because through one side of this pocket, of course, a tag or a card will have to go. For the hinges, I prepared 3 strips of paper. All 3 are 3/4 inch wide, and then the long one is 4.5 inches long, the same as the length of the paper piece that we have used for the frame. And then the 2 short ones are 3/4 inch wide by 3 inches long. They're scored down the center, and I have also snipped the corners off after folding each one of those strips. Now I'm going to glue each one of them down to the frame. That's what we have. So you will try to stay as close to the edges of the craft cardstock as you can, so that when you fold the hinges in, they're not visible in the front. Then for the piece that will go on top of this, you're going to need a piece of pattern paper of your choice, and this will measure 4 1/4 by 2 3/4. You will also need the same size piece of the acetate. With this piece of paper, we'll have to do the same as we did with the piece of the craft, but I'm now going to move the stoppers to 1/4 inch and punch again. Make sure that you push the paper right into the corner and make sure that it stays straight. Now the same thing, I will cut out this paper section in the center, ink the edges. Next you will need to glue the acetate piece in the back of the paper piece. I'm going to use just a bit of glue. We only need to hold it together since we're going to sew it later on. You will just match both of the pieces because they are the same size. And once you have that done, you will need to put it on top of your previously created piece the same way. Again, I'm adding a tiny bit of glue all the way around. And now positioning it on top of my previously created pocket, making sure that I have even borders all the way around. Now I'm taking this to my sewing machine and stitch around and get back to you. Like that. And when you sew, just make sure that you keep the flaps unfolded, of course. We will take our cover again, and the pocket is going to be attached right here, and then some kind of card or tag will go inside this pocket. We will slide it from the bottom. For gluing this down, I'm just going first of all to add some wet glue to the hinge, and now I will try to position it correctly. And I also want, before adhering the side flaps, I want to add just a piece of clear tape onto this hinge, and you will see how easy it will be to slide the card in it. Well, just a little bit of that strip can be visible, but I think it will be okay since it's clear. Now I can add the glue to the remaining hinges and completely glue it down. Now for the inside, I want to create a card that looks like that. For creating it, I will need a piece of craft cardstock. It will measure 4 3/8 by 3 1/2. Then I'm going to use the envelope punch board, and on one of the long sides, I'm going to match the corner with the mark of 1 inch and punch. Then flip, again match the corner with 1 inch and punch again. Now I just need to trim these side sections, and if you want to, you could use a corner rounder and just round all 4 corners. Then for matting the card, I think I'm going to use this ephemera piece from the paper collection. It was on one of the cut apart sheets, and you will just need to trim it a little bit on the sides so that it is 4 1/8 by 2 7/8. I was already going to glue it down like so with the tab facing up, but as a matter of fact, our card will go inside the pocket from the bottom like that. That's why my card needs to be glued down like so. And I think I also want something to be here. So in the collection, you can find a few labels, and you can either use one of those. You could also mat it with a piece of craft cardstock and ink the edges, for example. I think I am going to use one of the labels together with this brass book plate, and I'm going to layer them one on top of the other like so. Here we go. Later on I will think what I want to write or stamp on the label itself. For adding something to the inside, you can probably choose, I don't know, sequins, buttons, maybe some tiny seed beads, or dry flowers. That's what I'm going to do. After playing around with the flowers that I had, I finally chose the arrangement that I want to see on the cover. And these are the flowers that I chose: a pansy, a purple, tiny rose, a hydrangea flower, and a fern. I am going to cover them with another piece of acetate, because if I don't, then I think they might break. I don't want that to happen. If you are using larger dry flowers, they might be thicker, but these ones are really, really delicate and thin. So I just want to preserve them a little bit better. So I am going to cover them with another sheet of acetate. I have added 1/8 of an inch score tape all the way around the piece that I'm going to glue down on top. And what I also wanted to do, I think I'm going to take a piece of tea stained paper and use the transfers with the tiny numbers and then cut them down to separate pieces. Okay, now this layer will also be covered with the acetate, and altogether it will create really nice and interesting dimension. But I'm not ready to glue this whole paper piece down to the cover just yet, because of course we need to attach our signatures to the cover first, and that's what we're going to do. You remember that we needed to cut a certain section from the flap so that it doesn't show through the window. That's what I did. I think I have about 3/4 of an inch away from the very top, and then 3/4 of an inch in from the very edge of the flap. And the length of this cut is about 3 inches or 3.5 inches long. I have a guideline on the chipboard that I sketched. It will help me to glue down the flap nicely and straight. So the line is 1.5 inch away from the edge of the chipboard. The line is both on the inside of the front cover and on the inside of the back cover right here, 1.5 inch away from the edge of the chipboard, which is closer to the spine. Now I'm ready to apply the glue and start gluing down one of the flaps, and we can also snip off the corners just a tiny bit there and align the edge of the flap with the guideline. Now you will see that the signatures are tiny shorter than the cover, so I will leave about 1/16 of an inch from the top and from the bottom, and I will secure this with a clip at the top and with a clip at the bottom, and leave it to dry for a few minutes before I do the same and glue the back flap to the inside of the back cover. When you glue the back flap to the inside of the back cover, you might need to hold the front cover and the signatures at a straight angle to the working surface, like so, till the paper here glues down to the chipboard at least a little bit, and then you will need to press tighter and once again leave it to dry while clipping the top and the bottom with a paper clip. Now we can glue down the paper piece with the flowers to the inside of our front cover, and when you glue it down, make sure you line up the window nicely with the one that you see in the cover, and that you look at the edges so that they're also nice and straight. And now I can add that second pocket to the inside of the cover as well. This time I want the opening to be at the top. The same way as we did before, I will glue down the bottom flap first, and I'm keeping the card inside so that I can see up to where it reaches exactly on the page. I think I want it to be somewhere here. Okay, so I'm taking care of the bottom flap right now, and I want to add the piece of tape, and I think that I can add the tape actually a little bit further in so that it doesn't show that much. On the inside of the pocket there. Now I can seal the remaining two flaps and add the card to the inside. Now let's embellish the inside of our back cover. I'm going to need a piece of pattern paper, and here is the design that I chose from the collection. It measures 8.5 by 5 5/8. I'm also going to need a piece of craft cardstock. It measures 4.5 by 7.5. On one of the long sides, it is scored at 1/2 inch, and on one of the short sides, it is scored at 1/2 inch as well. Then I trimmed the corner, and when you create the score lines for the future flaps, make sure that when you score them, they are on the right hand side and at the bottom. So if you score from here, for example, score at 1/2 inch and 1/2 inch, but just make sure that when you flip the piece to the side that it needs to be, the flaps will be on your right hand side and at the bottom, because this will be a future pocket which is going to attach to the right hand side of the paper piece. To mat the pocket, we're going to need a piece of pattern paper. That's the design that I'm using. The paper piece measures 3 3/4 by 6 3/4. I'm going to have two clear pockets on this pattern paper here. The size of the pockets, and these are, as you can see, acetate with the gold foiled washi tape folded over one of the edges. and also zigzag stitched at the top. The size of the vellum piece is 3 3/4 by 2 inches. Both of the acetate pieces that I have measure the same, and they are created the same way. So one of them you are going to stitch down to the pattern paper 2 1/4 inch away from the bottom. So the way I did that, I measured 2 1/4 inch away from the bottom of the pattern paper piece. I made some tick marks and then matched the bottom corners of the acetate piece with the tick marks, clipped the paper and the vellum together, and took it to my sewing machine and stitched a line right there. Next, I'm going to secure just a little bit this piece of acetate on top of the paper, and I'm adding glue to the gold foiled washi tape because it will not be seen there once I stitch everything together. Right now I'm just going to clip the acetate and the paper together in those places where I have added the glue. And next, what we're going to do, since this pocket, according to my plan at least, will have a cut off corner, I need to create that cut off corner first. And you can really just eyeball and snip the corner off the way you want. If you really want to be precise and do it exactly as I do, you will measure 2 inches down from this top corner of the pattern paper, and then 1.5 inches to the right hand side from the same corner of the paper. And then you can either draw a line first, or just go ahead and cut along the tick marks that you have created. So this will be the snipped off corner that we are going to create on our pocket. We will trim the craft cardstock along the cut line of the pattern paper a little bit later as well. Now I only need to ink the edges of this paper piece. I'm going to glue it down to the craft cardstock first with all the paper clips that I have here, or maybe I can remove them now. And this piece, oh no, it still doesn't hold. Okay, not a problem. We will glue this paper piece down to the craft cardstock first of all. Make sure that you leave about 1/8 of an inch borders all the way around. And of course I start to glue the pattern paper down to the craft cardstock from the fold. And now we can glue and clip back our acetate piece on top. I'm aligning it with the edge of the pattern paper. Okay. I'll let it sit for just a few seconds. Now I will trim the corner of the craft cardstock, and I will just eyeball what's the width of the border that I need to leave. Okay. And now I'm going to take it to my sewing machine again and stitch around the edge of the pattern paper. When you do that, just make sure that you unfold the long flap. This is how it looks so far. Now I'm ready to glue it down. This whole piece can be glued down to the inside of the back cover with whichever adhesive that you choose to use. I really liked the coin with the number 2 that I had on my previous journal from this series that I decided to have a similar coin for this journal as well. And right now we are working on the number 3. I also forgot to mention before that prior to attaching the signatures to the cover of my journal, I poked a hole and added the hanger for the charms or for this coin to be there. So right now this journal is ready to be decorated on the inside. Let me show you how I embellished mine. I will quickly go through the journal right now because I'm sure you might have already seen it in the overview. I will briefly flip through it, and in some places I will explain what I did or from where I cut out a certain image and so on. So that's the journal, our third one for the junk journal station. The spine looks like this. I have added some pansy flowers and some leaves. They were cut from one of the background sheets with lots and lots of flowers. It was a colorful one. I loved it, and I was absolutely mesmerized by these pansies, so I decided to use them on the spine. I have also stamped in a few places on the spine. I did that on one of the journals in the past as well. That's how the back looks. I have added my handmade label and also some flowers that I cut out from the background sheets. That's the one. And I have used lots and lots of paper cut-offs that were left after I finished the journal. So you always need to look at those little pieces and see if there is a certain piece with a full flower that you can cut, or with a full watering can, or anything of that kind. I mean full, that image is full, that part of it has not been cut. So that's the coin charm with the number 3 that I have added to the spine. And I must say that I had to change the card and the paper to this one. The card that we have created in the tutorial is right here, but I just needed more color on the cover of the journal, and that's why I changed it. So it's absolutely the same in terms of size, and if you are watching a tutorial first and then making a journal, please think about it. You might need some more color. I just thought that this one looked good enough, but this one is better. I have also added the word observation. It was also one of the words from the Rub-Ons by Tim Holtz. The inside looks the same from when we created it together. I have embellished the pages on the inside, and literally what I did, besides the stamping that I showed you in the very beginning of the tutorial, I just took all the ephemera pieces that I had from the collection and all the paper cut-offs. I rounded the corners on some of them, and I just added them to the pages. As straightforward as that. I layered some labels from the paper pack on some other file folders or cards or tickets, and you will see that in just a minute. So here, for example, I want to show you the collection included 3 of those very cute file folders, and in some other tutorials I used them to bind them in between the pages and make them into pockets. This time I decided to fold them over the bottom of one of the pages, and they're glued right here on the side to both sides of the page as well, and that's how you create a super simple and quick pocket that you can use for more journaling cards. So this card, for example, also was created from one of the cut-offs that I was left with after I finished embellishing all the pages of the journal. I only added one of the circles that also comes in the paper collection. Here, for example, from the same sheet of pattern paper with the flowers, I had the leaves, and I used some of those leaves on the page right here. One of the fussy cut elements from the collection. And here is the envelope, and inside the envelope there is again a paper that was just a cut off from one of the pattern sheets. Then on this page I have created a belly band, and for fun there is just this label that can slide on top of the belly band. And here is another journaling card that was created with some cut-offs from the pattern papers, and I have clipped the faux postage stamp with the tiny attacher, and this is how it holds on the belly band. Here we have a pocket. This one is from the paper collection, and another journaling card inside the pocket. I have added a flower here from the fussy cut flowers from the paper collection. Here we have another one of those file folders, which is wrapped over the bottom of the page. One more cut off from the paper, turned into a journaling card. Here is a cute label from the paper collection that I attached with a brad to the file folder. Two more cards on this side with the rounded corners. I think it looks better than the sharp corners in this case. Some more fussy cut elements from the paper collection. I added the circles. There are more than enough circles to do that, and you can just use your circle punches if you have any to punch them out and make them to double-sided, very cute paper charms. There is a pocket, a curved one right here, another element from the paper collection, some fussy cut leaves. Nothing has been added here. This is that cute ticket strip that I just folded in half and then clipped it onto the page. Here I have created a belly band and a very simple notebook with the cover, which was included in the paper collection. And here in the back I have added a pocket and another piece of the leftover pattern paper. So this notebook goes behind the belly band like so. I really like the flower pots with some beautiful flowers. I think there are 3 of those in the paper collection. They look very, very cute. There is a flower that has been glued down to this page here. Also, these elements are fussy cut and added to the page. The dragonfly here, and some more leaves and that cute yellow flower there. Here I have added some cards and labels that I stapled, and more paper leftovers that I turned into little journaling cards as well. Some cards from the paper collection in the pockets that we have created. Here I have added also some circles, punched out circles that were included in the paper collection, and added an eyelet to those circles. I think it looks great like that. Then on this side I have added a label and just a gold foiled circle there with a punched out circle from the paper collection. Some tickets are inside the pockets and a journaling card. These ones are also from the paper collection with the beautiful hydrangeas and another kind of flower that I don't sure I know what's the name of it. The second signature here, I love those pansies. They're so beautiful. Here we have another curved pocket with a flower pot and a label that says lovely. And this is the leftover from the pattern papers that I used in the journal, and a layered floral embellishment with the gold foiled paper. I really like how gold foiled paper adds really beautiful accents to the journal. Here I have stapled some tiny tags onto the page, and here is the third of the file folders, which has been turned into a pocket. Here I have just added a piece of pattern paper and stitched a fabric tab onto it. Here I have layered some elements on top of the file folder. We have a label, a butterfly, and the leaves there. Moth or a little dragonfly maybe. A ticket strip folded over the top of the page, and a flower which has been glued there. More beautiful flowers here, and paper strip from the cut apart elements from the collection. Only stamping here. Here I have also added those punched out paper circles to the tails of the threads that I used to bind the signatures with. Some flowers. Here's just a paper snippet that I tucked behind the thread, so it looks quite nice and interesting there. Okay, some more elements from the paper collection. A journaling card with a faux postage stamp that is stapled onto it, and here is another sliding element on the belly band just for fun. A beautiful pink flower there. Here we have a pocket with 2 tickets and beautiful fussy cut flowers from the paper collection. More fussy cut flowers and even more of them here. Here I have stapled 2 tags together, or no, I glued them rather than stapled, glued them just on this edge, and now it can be used as a marker on a page. Looks great on both sides. Another beautiful flower with a butterfly, and that's almost the end of the second signature. Another flower pot. And here I have also added numerous tickets and journaling cards from the paper collection. They're all really beautiful. Here I have layered a punched out circle with hydrangeas. Here we have more journaling cards in this pocket, and another mat inside the large pocket that we have created. I once again added the circles and the eyelet there. On this side we have a journaling card. I have glued down 2 labels to the pockets, placed some tickets in this pocket, and added a journaling card to that transparent pocket here. And on this page, on the inside of the back cover, I have a few labels in one of the pockets and a few more little tags inside this pocket at the bottom. And from the tags that we had in the collection, the tags with the letters that spell out the word plants, I have created a little banner on a really thin thread, and I have added the little flowers from that patterned paper sheet that I have used for the spine of my journal as well. I think this banner looks so cute, and it's really lightweight, and I will put it inside the journal. I just need to find a tiny envelope for it, and then I can have it here inside this pocket somewhere maybe. And one more thing, I have added some beads to the ends of the string, which is used for keeping this beautiful journal closed. So that's what we have created in today's tutorial. I hope you like it. I hope you love the collection. It's really, really beautiful, and I'm glad that right now we have our third book ready and complete. And the next book and the next tutorial in this series will be animal themed. The images are again great, and there is always something to wait for with the new collections from Victoria Designs. So I hope you enjoyed. I'm really thankful for your time that you spent today with me. If you have any questions, please make sure to ask them in the comments down below. I will do my best to get back to you, and talk to you soon. Bye.